Well, welcome to Dirty Secrets, the channel where the truth can't stay hidden. Work can bring people together. Colleagues become friends, mentors become role models, and long hours spent on projects can sometimes feel like a second family. But sometimes, it brings them too close. Jason never imagined that his wife's dedication to her career would become the very thing that unraveled their marriage. Late nights at the office, mysterious business trips, and half answers to simple questions. They all seemed like the price of ambition. But behind those excuses was a truth he never expected. Tonight's story is about Jason, a man who thought his wife was simply driven to succeed. But in reality, her ambition wasn't just focused on the boardroom. It was entangled in something darker, something far more personal. And when Jason uncovered it, his entire world changed forever. Jason and Natalie had been married for 7 years. From the outside, they looked like the perfect couple. Young, attractive, ambitious. They owned a modest but comfortable home in the suburbs, with a backyard big enough for summer barbecues and dreams of one day filling it with children's laughter. Friends often commented on how well they balanced each other. Jason was steady, thoughtful, and supportive, while Natalie was bold, sharp, and endlessly driven. Natalie had always been ambitious. Even when they first met in college, she was the one who stayed up late polishing essays, while Jason encouraged her to take breaks. She talked about her future with a fire in her eyes, painting pictures of corner offices and leadership roles. Jason admired that about her. It was part of what drew him in, her certainty, her unwillingness to settle for anything less than success. After graduation, Natalie landed a job at a large corporate firm. The hours were brutal, but she thrived under the pressure. Jason remembered telling his friends proudly, "She's the smartest woman I know. She's going to run that company one day." And he meant it. He admired her drive, her ability to command a room, and the way her colleagues respected her. Her career wasn't just a job, it was her identity. But with success came distance. As the years passed, Natalie spent more and more time at work. She stayed late at the office, took calls during dinner, and excused herself from weekends together, with explanations about networking events. Jason wanted to believe it was all necessary, all part of the path to success. He reminded himself that sacrifices had to be made for big dreams. At first, he was supportive. He cooked dinners when she came home late, left notes of encouragement on her desk, and told himself it was temporary. That once she reached a certain level, things would slow down. But as time went on, Jason began to wonder if work was really the only thing keeping her busy. He noticed the way her eyes flickered when she spoke vaguely about long meetings, how she avoided details about certain trips, and how her phone seemed to buzz at odd hours. Still, Jason loved her deeply. He clung to the belief that their marriage could weather any storm, that Natalie's ambition was simply part of who she was. He trusted her, or at least he tried to. But even the strongest trust can crack under the weight of unanswered questions. And for Jason, those cracks were about to widen into fractures that would shatter everything he thought he knew. The excuses began to pile up. At first, they were simple enough. "I have a late meeting. We're entertaining clients. I need to fly out for a quick conference." Jason wanted to believe her. For years, he told himself that Natalie's ambition came with sacrifices, and that her long hours and sudden trips were just stepping stones toward the career she dreamed of. But small details began to catch his attention, things that didn't add up. One evening, as she hugged him goodnight, Jason caught the faint scent of a new perfume on her, one he didn't recognize. It was expensive, bold, unlike the subtle fragrances Natalie usually wore. "New perfume?" he asked casually. She hesitated before smiling faintly. "Oh, a coworker gave me a sample. Thought I'd try it." Jason nodded, but something about the explanation felt rehearsed. Then there were the clothes. Dresses he had never seen before, tucked into the back of the closet. Elegant, tailored pieces that seemed out of place next to her usual work attire. When he asked about them, she brushed it off. "Just a few sales I couldn't pass up." But Jason couldn't remember her bringing them home, and the receipts were nowhere to be found. Even her phone became a source of unease. Natalie used to leave it on the counter, unguarded, but now she carried it everywhere, to the bathroom, to the shower, even when she walked into another room for a moment. When it buzzed with messages, Jason noticed how quickly she flipped the screen over, hiding the sender's name. And sometimes, just sometimes, he caught the faintest smile tugging at her lips before she realized he was watching. The moment that made his stomach twist came one evening when he reached for her phone by mistake. She had left it on the nightstand, buzzing with notifications. When the screen lit up, Jason froze. The number was saved under a woman's name, but the message preview told a different story. "Can't wait to see you again." Jason's gut tightened. Why would Natalie hide her boss's number under someone else's name? The red flags were impossible to ignore. Jason tried to convince himself it was nothing, that he was being paranoid. But deep down, he knew the truth was hovering just out of reach. And sooner or later, it would come crashing down. The truth began to surface one quiet evening when Jason accidentally picked up Natalie's phone. She had left it on the kitchen counter while stepping out to take a call in the backyard. Normally, he wouldn't have thought twice about it, but the screen lit up with a notification that stopped him cold. The message read, "Last night was incredible. Same time tomorrow." Jason's chest tightened. His hands trembled as he read the words again, hoping he had misunderstood. But there was no mistaking it. This wasn't from a coworker or a casual acquaintance. And when he looked closer, the contact name didn't belong to any of her girlfriends. It was her boss. The blood drained from Jason's face. His mind raced with questions, but his heart already knew the answer. He had suspected for weeks, maybe months, but seeing the words spelled out on her phone was different. It was proof. Undeniable. Devastating proof. When Natalie came back inside, Jason quickly set the phone down, his heart pounding so loudly he was sure she could hear it. She smiled at him casually, as if nothing had happened, and poured herself a glass of wine. Jason forced himself to smile back, but inside, he was unraveling. He couldn't confront her yet. Not without more evidence. If he was going to end their marriage, he needed to be certain. For his own sanity. For the closure he knew he would need. So, he kept quiet. But that night, as he lay in bed next to her, Jason stared at the ceiling with wide, sleepless eyes. The words from the message echoed in his head, over and over again. Last night was incredible. Same time, tomorrow. It wasn't suspicion anymore. It was reality. And Jason knew he needed proof. The kind of proof no one could deny. Jason knew he couldn't rely on a single message. His world was already tilting. But if he was going to confront Natalie, he needed more than one damning text. He needed undeniable proof. Over the next week, he became an investigator in his own home. Quiet, cautious, and consumed by a determination he never thought he'd need. He started with the small things. Receipts left crumpled in the trash, charges on their joint credit card that didn't match her stories, dinners at restaurants Jason had never been to, hotel bookings made under her boss's name, conference trips that didn't appear on her company's calendar. Each piece of evidence was like a shard of glass, cutting him deeper every time he pieced them together. Natalie's behavior made his suspicions easier to track. She guarded her phone like it contained state secrets, stepping outside for calls, smiling at late-night texts that she tried to hide. She was careful, but not careful enough. Jason noticed the patterns. Trips always coincided with her boss's schedule. Meetings always ran late when he was in town. The coincidences piled up until they were impossible to ignore. Finally, Jason decided to take his investigation outside the walls of their home. One night, after Natalie told him she had to stay late at the office, he drove downtown and parked in the shadow of her building. Hours passed as he sat in the silence of his car, heart pounding, eyes fixed on the glass doors of her firm. Near midnight, he saw them. Natalie and her boss walked out together, laughing, their bodies angled too close for comfort. Jason watched as her boss reached for her hand, and she didn't pull away. They lingered near his car, whispering, smiling, before slipping inside together. The sight knocked the air out of Jason's lungs. Every part of him wanted to storm across the lot, to rip the door open and demand answers. But instead, he sat frozen, his fists clenched so tightly his nails cut into his palms. In that moment, It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was reality, playing out in front of him like a cruel movie. The woman he loved, the life he thought they shared, it all shattered before his eyes. Jason drove home in silence, his mind racing, his heart breaking. The proof was undeniable now. Natalie wasn't just ambitious, she was unfaithful. And the next step, he knew, would be the hardest one yet. That night, Jason waited for her. The house felt colder than usual, every shadow heavier, every sound louder. He sat at the kitchen table, the weight of everything he had seen pressing down on his chest. When Natalie finally walked in, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor, she looked startled to see him awake. "You're up," she asked lightly, trying to mask her surprise. She set her purse down, her tone casual. Too casual. Jason studied her, his heart pounding in his chest. His voice was low, steady. "I know. I saw you. With him." Natalie froze, her face draining of color. For a moment, the room was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Her lips parted as if to deny it, but no words came. Jason's gaze didn't waver. He had waited too long for this moment, and there was no turning back. Finally, she tried. "Jason, it's not what you think." He cut her off, his voice sharper now. Don't insult me with lies. I saw you with him. I know about the messages, the trips, the dinners. You don't get to hide behind excuses anymore." Natalie's eyes filled with tears. She sank into the chair across from him, her hands trembling. It just happened," she whispered. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. He understands me in ways you don't." The words sliced through Jason like a knife. He had prepared himself for denial, for tears, even for anger. But hearing her justify it, that was worse. His chest tightened as if the air had been sucked out of the room. He shook his head slowly. "So that's it? After 7 years of marriage, after everything we've built, you throw it away for him? For understanding?" Natalie reached for him, desperation flickering in her eyes. "Jason, please, I didn't want to hurt you." He pushed her hand away. "You didn't want to hurt me, but you did, repeatedly. Every time you lied, every time you left me here wondering, every time you chose him over us." The silence that followed was heavy, final. Natalie wept quietly, her face buried in her hands. Jason stood, his decision clear, his voice calm but resolute. "We're done, Natalie." And with those words, the life they had built together crumbled, not with a scream, but with the quiet devastation of truth laid bare. The days that followed were some of the darkest Jason had ever endured. The confrontation had left him raw, his mind replaying Natalie's words on a loop. "He understands me in ways you don't." No matter how many times he tried to push them away, they echoed in his chest, a cruel reminder of everything he had lost. The house, once filled with laughter and plans for the future, became a hollow shell. Jason moved through it like a ghost, haunted by memories of dinners they had shared, quiet mornings over coffee, and the countless times he had believed her excuses. Every room felt like a monument to the life they had built together and the lies that had destroyed it. Within a week, Jason filed for divorce. The decision, though heartbreaking, was the only one that made sense. There was no rebuilding trust after what he had seen, no salvaging a marriage where betrayal had taken root so deeply. Natalie didn't fight him on it. Perhaps she knew the damage was irreparable. Perhaps she had already chosen her path. Friends and family were stunned. Many had admired Jason and Natalie's marriage, holding it up as an example of balance between ambition and devotion. The revelation of the affair left them speechless. Some rallied around Jason, offering support and late-night phone calls. Others expressed disbelief. They had seen Natalie as a role model, a woman destined for greatness. But now, whispers began to spread even within her company. Rumors of her relationship with her boss tainted her reputation, casting shadows over her once sterling career. Jason, meanwhile, tried to rebuild. He spent long nights staring at the ceiling, struggling to reconcile the woman he had loved with the stranger she had become. He grieved not only the loss of his marriage, but the future he had envisioned: children, anniversaries, growing old together. All of it had vanished in an instant. And yet, amid the heartbreak, there was relief. The weight of suspicion, the endless guessing, the gnawing doubt, it was gone. The truth, painful as it was, had freed him. He no longer had to live in the shadows of lies. Now all that was left was the long road of healing. Time, though slow and unforgiving, became Jason's ally. In the weeks and months that followed, the sharp edges of heartbreak began to soften. He still woke some mornings with an ache in his chest, but little by little, he started piecing himself back together. Therapy helped. Speaking the words out loud, betrayal, infidelity, loss, lifted some of the weight from his shoulders. His therapist reminded him again and again, Natalie's choices were not a reflection of his worth, but of hers. She had cheated not because he was lacking, but because she was. She had crossed a line out of weakness, not his failure. Jason leaned on his friends, the ones who had stayed. Late-night conversations, weekend trips, even just quiet evenings spent watching movies together. These small acts of companionship reminded him that loyalty still existed, that trust could still be real. He also found strength in rediscovering himself. He picked up hobbies he had set aside during his marriage, started running in the mornings, and poured his energy into his work. For the first time in years, his life wasn't overshadowed by Natalie's ambitions or her secrets. It was his, fully and completely. And slowly, peace settled in. Jason realized Natalie hadn't cheated because he wasn't enough. She had cheated because she lacked integrity. Her ambition had crossed a line, blinding her to the value of loyalty and the sanctity of marriage. And Jason finally knew he deserved someone who valued loyalty over power. Work can bring people together, but when boundaries are crossed, it can destroy everything. For Jason, his wife's affair wasn't just betrayal. It was proof that ambition without respect leads only to ruin. Her choices ended their marriage, but they also freed him from living in the shadows of lies. In the end, betrayal became his turning point, a painful ending that opened the door to a more honest, more hopeful beginning.